Hari Om. Let's continue further. The final phase of Bhishma's life is the most textually advanced portion of the present audit. Its clinical importance does not lie in reconstructing the physiology of prolonged survival after penetrating battlefield injury. The more durable observation is that bodily devastation does not erase the capacity to communicate discomfort, judge what is fitting, receive or decline care, teach, maintain relationships, and organize dying around culturally meaningful completion. The arrow bed transforms the narrative. So those who don't know, what happens is that Arjuna attacks on him. There's a specific context, how and when he's able to and why he's successful doing that. And I'll read out those sections for you in a little bit. But what Arjuna does is that the way he attacks, Bhishma essentially ends up getting a bed of arrows. The bed of arrows. That's what ends up happening. And that's what ends up happening. Contemporary disability scholarship and rehabilitation can take some advantage from this example, from this incidence. The arrow bed transforms the narrative. Physical vulnerability becomes the setting in which the intellectual and social authority reach their greatest expression. In neurology, rehabilitation, geriatrics, and palliative care, this juxtaposition foregrounds an enduring clinical principle. Motor dependence and severe bodily impairment cannot serve as proxies for loss of personhood, decisional capacity, or meaningful contribution. As I was saying, contemporary disability scholarship and rehabilitation ethics caution against inferring cognition, quality of life, or decisional capacity from visible motor impairment. Capacity is decision specific and ordinarily concerns the abilities to understand relevant information, appreciate its significance, reason about alternatives, and communicate a choice. Communication barriers may obscure these abilities without eliminating them. The narrative cannot establish Bhishma's clinical capacity in the modern sense, but it usefully exposes the error of equating bodily dependence with the disappearance of agency or personhood. Expressing discomfort and requesting support. So there comes this shloka in chapter 120, shloka number 37, 38, and 41, where it says, seeing Arjuna approaching, the illustrious Bhishma, the foremost among men, spoke to the mighty son of Pandu, celebrated everywhere as a supreme warrior, saying, what does he say? O Arjuna, mighty armed hero, my head is unsupported and hangs downward. If you deem it appropriate, grant me a fitting pillow. Tato viksha narasreshtam abhya patata pandavam dhananjayam dirgabahum sarvaloka maharatham dhananjay mahabaho shirome tvam lambate diyatamu padhanam ve yadyakta miha manyase. This is what happens. The ethically important action, however, is communication. Bhishma identifies specific source of discomfort and requests assistance. The narrative therefore begins care not with clinician's assumption, but with injured person's report. In contemporary practice, this invites attention to accessible communication, symptom elicitation, and the distinction between physical dependence and inability to express preference. Anurupa, care judged, fitting by the recipient. शयनस्यानुरूपं मे पाण्डवोपहितं त्वया यद्यन्यथा प्रपद्येथा सपेयं त्वामहं रुषा. What you have placed is appropriate for one lying in the state, O Pandava. Had you acted otherwise, I would have reproached you in anger. The key term here is anurupa, which can convey fittingness, correspondence, or appropriateness to person and circumstance. To person and circumstance. So, in this shloka, ततो वीक्ष्य नरश्रेष्ठमभ्या पतत पांडवम धनंजयम दीर्घबाहुम सर्वलोक महारथम धनंजय महाबाहो शिरो मे त्वं लंबते दीयतामुपधानम वै यद्युक्तम इह मन्यसे. O Arjun, mighty armed hero, my head is unsupported and hangs downward. If you deem it appropriate, grant me a fitting pillow. The ethically important action is communication. Bhishma identifies a specific source of discomfort and requests assistance. The narrative therefore begins care not with clinician's assumption, but with injured person's report. The contemporary practice thus invites attention to accessible communication, symptom elicitation, and distinction between physical dependence and inability to express preference. Then, anurup, care judged fitting by the recipient. शयनस्यानुरूपं मे पाण्डवोपहितं त्वया यद्यन्यथा प्रपद्येथा सपेयं त्वामहं रुषा. What you have placed is appropriate for one lying in the state, O Pandava. Had you acted otherwise, I would have reproached you in anger. This is said in Gita Press, chapter 120, Bhishma Parva. It talks about the arrow bed sequence. It is sloka number 48. So the key term anurupa can convey fittingness, correspondence, or appropriateness to person and circumstance. It should not be translated automatically as patient-centered care, a modern ethical construct. The passage nevertheless foregrounds congruence between an intervention and the recipient's identity, condition, and understanding of what is suitable. It therefore generates clinical question: how should comfort be negotiated when a patient's values produce preference that observers find unfamiliar? Then let's talk about specialized physicians and available intervention. Mahabharata in Bhishma Parva, chapter 120, verses 55-59. In the Vulgate numbering, it reflects, it says, Upatishthannatho vedya salyodha dharanako vidah sarvopakaranayukta kushalay sadhu sikshita तान दृष्ट्वा जाहनी पुत्रः जानवी पुत्र गंगा पुत्र प्रोवाचतनयं तव दत्तदेया प्रसज्जन्ता दत्तदेया विसृज्यन्तां पूजयित्वा चिकित्सकाः एवं गदे महेर्दानि वैदेयैः कार्यमिहस्ति किम छत्रधर्मे प्रशस्तां हि प्राप्तोऽस्मि परमां गतिं नैष धर्मो महीपाला सरतल्पागत्स्य मे एभिरेव सरेश्चाहं दग्धव्यो नाग्नहुः नराधिपा. तच्छ्रुत्वा वचनं तस्य पुत्रो दुर्योधनस्तव वैद्यान् विसर्जयामास पूजयित्वा यथार्हतः. So Bhishma accepts Arjuna's arrow pillow and declares that he will stay on the arrow bed. Then the physicians skilled in extracting arrows approached. They were competent, well-trained, and had all the necessary instruments. Seeing them, Bhishma said, honor these physicians, pay them their due, and then dismiss them. Now that I have reached this state, what purpose can physicians serve for me here? I have achieved the highest goal in the dharma of warrior. O kings, treatment is no longer suitable for me as I lie on this bed of arrows. With these arrows still in my body, I should be burnt in the funeral fire. Hearing this, Duryodhana honored the physicians and dismissed them. It is said in third person because it's a story being told. So that's to the king, the father of Duryodhana, Dhritarashtra. So that's why it says, hearing this, your son Duryodhana honored the physicians and dismissed them. The passage recognizes specialized expertise, appropriate instruments, and the availability of intervention. If it does not establish equivalence with modern trauma surgery. Its narrative importance is that treatment is represented as available. Bhishma's later decision is therefore framed against the presence of skilled healers rather than the absence of care. But then what happens subsequently? He declines further intervention. Evam gatena hi idanim vaidye karyamihasti me chhatra dharma prasastam hi praptosmi paramam gatim. In this state, there is now no work for physicians concerning me here. I have reached the supreme course praised in dharma of warriors. What it means is, in my present condition, I have no further need for physicians. I have reached the final state honored within the warrior's moral world. It would be anachronistic to label this statement a modern advanced directive. Do not resuscitate order or hospice election. This will be anachronistic. The decision is embedded in warrior ethics, narrative destiny, and theology. Yet the passage foregrounds a problem familiar to contemporary medicine. The availability of an intervention does not by itself determine whether it accords with persons' values, goals, prognosis, and conception of good health. Modern shared decision making similarly distinguishes the existence of a technically available treatment from a justified treatment decision. High quality decisions require an account of options, expected benefits, and burden, uncertainty, the person's values and goals, and the clinical context. The treatment refusal is not automatically evidence of capacity, nor is it disagreement evidence of incapacity. It's neither this nor that. By keeping these distinctions explicit, the episode can enrich ethical reflection without being retrofitted into contemporary legal doctrine. Pashyadhvamupdhanam me पांडवेनाभिसंहितं शिष्येद्यस्यां सय्यायां यावदावर्तत नम्रवे. ये तदा मां गमिष्यन्ति ते च प्रेक्षन्ति मां नृपाः दिशं विश्रवणाक्रान्तां यदा गन्तादिवाकरः तूर्णं सप्ताहया युक्तेन रथेनाति मनोजसा विमोक्षेऽहं तदा प्राणान् सुहृदः सुप्रियानिव. Behold the pillow that has been provided for me by the son of Pandu. Upon this bed I shall remain until the sun changes its course, goes into the stage of Uttarayan. Those kings who come to me when the sun reaches the northern direction, Uttarayan, the region associated with Kubera, will witness me then. When the swift sun, drawn by 7 horses, reaches that northern course, I shall willingly release my life breath, just as one parts from the beloved friends. The turning of the sun belongs to the epic's sacred cosmology and should not be reduced to chronobiology. In medical humanistic relevance lies in temporal orientation. People approaching death may orient endurance and decision-making toward the arrival of family, completion of ritual, reconciliation, teaching, an anniversary, or another meaningful event. These goals may be clinically important even when they do not alter disease biology. Palliative care research supports attention to spiritual well-being, dignity, family connection, unfinished responsibilities, and personally meaningful goals near the end of life. These domains cannot be reduced to symptom scores, yet they may influence treatment preferences. perceived quality of care, and the experience of dying. The comparison offered here concerns temporal and existential orientation, not a claim that sacred chronology has a biomedical mechanism.